Hello, and welcome to Additional Levels of Security, especially needed in 2020, a UNC-Chapel Hill case study presented by Sharron Bouquin, a good friend of ours. My name is Scott Lavery, head of marketing here at Appsian, and I'd like to thank you for your attendance in today's PeopleSoft Innovation Summit. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes for you. Everyone is on mute. And the session is being recorded, and we will be posting the recording on the registration landing page for free on-demand viewing. Should be within the next week or so. The session today will be 45 minutes, and we might have limited time for Q&A. So if you do have a question for the presenter, you can either just reach out to them after the presentation, or you can certainly put your question in the question section of the control panel, and they will receive it and can likely reach out to you directly. So with that, I will now turn it over to Sharron to begin today's presentation. Sharron?
Thank you, Scott. As Scott said, I'm Sharron Bouquin with UNC-Chapel Hill. It's a beautiful sunny day here. It is a little cool, but it's nice and sunny. So we'll start off with talking about the additional levels of security. The especially needed in 2020, there'll be different pieces that I'll highlight, but as for the most part, these are needed in normal times. Most of what I'll be showing you, it's just things have ramped up possibly, or in some cases, we're doing things unique that we've never done before. We've never had the situation. There's nothing normal that's been about 2020. So I'll try to highlight some of those as I get to them. The agenda today, going to talk about securing access at login, securing fields and functionality, and other security while logged in, as well as monitoring, whether it's research and alerts, and how we handle those. Securing access at login. The first example is location-based restrictions. And this is restricting administrative access to UNC IPs, whether we're talking about wired on campus, wireless, using Eduroam, or UNC's VPN. But if someone needs to do something as an administrative user in our PeopleSoft environments, they're forced to use one of those. How do we accomplish this? Well, the first part, talking about the UNC IPs. Of course, networking changes and expands IPs ranges regularly, and certain times of the year they seem to peak, especially at the beginning of every term. When every student comes in, each term they come back with more and more devices, whether it's more phones, more iPads, 2 laptops, they all have multiple devices, and each year that number goes up. So our need for wireless and for Eduroam IPs steadily increases. Network makes the change immediately. They will expand. They don't delay doing what they need to do. They make their change. Then they put a ticket into us, so we get notified. Yes, there is a short lag depending on when it's done. We're not notified in the middle of the night and we don't do something then, but we get a ticket and we go in and we configure those IPs in our system. We maintain 2 sets of configuration. As I say, we restrict administrative access to using UNC IPs. We don't restrict self-service. So how do we differentiate? We identify exceptions. So whenever we have a new self-service component, we add those to our exceptions. That allows, if I'm home and I want to view my paycheck, I don't have to get on UNC's VPN in order to do that. I can just log in using my ID, go into PeopleSoft, and view my paycheck. Don't have to do anything else. If I navigate to go to another admin page of any type, I get this message. It basically reiterates you must be connected to either wired Wi-Fi using Eduroam or an off-campus UNC VPN. That is, so it's a blank page and that's at the top. That's the only thing they're going to get when they try to navigate to an admin page. And if they try to do another one, it's going to do the same thing. But as soon as you navigate to a self-service, you've got full access. Our solution for doing this was Apcian's ASP, or Apcian Security Platform. And I will refer after this slide to the short ASP throughout. The next example is two-factor authentication for Duo. We also require that for administrative users, not for self-service. I don't have to do it if I'm a self-service only user, but if I have any admin access, then we're going to require it. Of course, I can't tell what I'm planning on doing, so it has nothing to do with my intent of where I'm going. It's as soon as I log in. We actually couple this with our Shibboleth authentication. So when you log in and you authenticate through Shib, the next thing it will prompt will be for Duo. Now, why did we choose to do it that way? And we looked at multiple possibilities of implementing Duo. We knew we wanted it to be coupled with the PeopleSoft login, but we were doing a bigger rollout of Duo. And so the benefits of how we have implemented, it allows for single two-factor authentication across all UNC applications. So it doesn't matter if I'm logged into PeopleSoft and I go to another application that would typically require Duo, I don't have to re-authenticate. So it enforces the security while offering some leniency. The two factors, the two things that come into play here is you have to be using the same browser and not in incognito mode or private mode or something like that. Something so that it'll share those cookies across. And it has to be within the approved time frame. So we've defined a time that as long as you've authenticated and are active on an application, you won't have to do Duo for the other apps in a certain time frame. So it made it a little softer, a little easier for campus, our users, admin users, to buy into this. Now, who do we consider administrative? And I know you're probably thinking that's logical. Why would there be a question? There actually was at times. What we consider is anyone who can see or process any other information other than their own. So any transactions for anything other than their own, whether that's dealing with finance, HR, or campus solutions, or something that we've embedded on the portal, doesn't matter. If it's not your personal information, then you're considered an admin user to even have that access. And that does include managers and faculty. Those two have been the one that probably questioned it the most. And it doesn't help that we have systems that use terms like manager self-service or faculty self-service. Our users would argue with that or present that as a case that, well, but I'm only accessing my own employees, or I'm only accessing my students. And that's not their data. They have access to that data because of their job. And if it's because of their job, then that's not self-service. Any special considerations when implementing this? The one I would stress over and over and over again is communications. The more your users understand the security implications, the more likely that they will accept and support your initiative. Can't emphasize that enough. That's very important. We did a communication campaign when we implemented Duo this way, and we have other two-factor on our campus. We implemented it with Office 365, a different type of authentication, but still two-factor. So we did a lot of campaign, a lot of education, and As unfortunate as it was, timing was in our favor because we would be doing a rollout, and sure enough, something would come up on the news about some vulnerability, something that came up with some company, and someone was able to get to someone's access their information and come in as them. And they would typically say, and these banks and these other companies are implementing two-factor. And so those also, we would get a lot. We would go and do presentations on campus, and instead of getting pushback, we were getting support. And so as unfortunate as it was, the timing, those actually helped. But our campaign for education and campaign for communication, I can't stress that enough. How we accomplished this was with Duo. The next is restrict number of logins over a period of time. And you may hear that description and say, why would you ever restrict that? We actually had, so the why, we actually had a couple of users a few years ago that attempted, well, they successfully wrote scripts to log into our system using their credentials and look up certain things. They were very good at what they were doing. They weren't doing anything malicious, but they could have easily done something malicious in a script. Not only that, and these were students, we can't have thousands of students writing scripts against our system and us be able to maintain the level of support and the level of response that we would be expecting to have. So we pushed back. We created a modification in our system. And how did we accomplish this? We started off, we utilized the delivered PS access log to track logins. Well, the system does that for us. It creates that when you log in. So we utilized it. We defined and if a login threshold is exceeded during a predefined time, then we block the login. That could be anything. We handle that through configuration, but we came up with a reasonable number. We have only adjusted it, I think, once. So we did a pretty good guess. But in our configuration, like I say, we defined the threshold number of logins. So maybe if that's 50, and time frame allowed, if that's in an 8-hour period, that's configuration for us. So we can change it at any time we need to. And then the exception login IDs. And you ask, well, why would you need an exception? There are times that we need that because there have been instances that browsers have done odd things and caused a loop at login, and the person had not logged in. They were clearly not scripting anything, but in order to get them back up and going, we have a way of defining and setting them as an exception so that they bypass the rule. And the next day, we take them off the exception list. We help them clear their cache. We help them with what caused the issue to begin with, and they're up and going. The solution that we implemented is a bolt-on. We used a custom application package and monitoring via Splunk. The next example is terms of use agreement. We at UNC implemented a requirement for our administrative users. We outlined what are the expectations as me as an administrative user in using the system. What things do I need to make sure and I'm agreeing to adhere to? Those are the things we have in our terms of use. But notice we state that it's required to review, or they're required to review and accept. If Sorry, my apologies, guys. Accepting terms of use is a prerequisite to getting administrative access. If they, and you say, well, administrative access could come on at any time. How do you actually implement that? No, we don't stop security. We still allow security to occur. So the security group will get a request and they can go ahead and implement it. We're not going to hold those up in any way. What we are going to do is to block the user. So if a user has administrative access and has not accepted, we take them directly to the page to accept. It gives the detailed links to go to what they are adhering to and they're supposed to be reviewing, but we also give them a place so they can accept or log out. They have two options, accept or log out. They can't decline. Decline is no different than logging out. If a user logs in before administrative access is granted, then the user can navigate to accept. That's no problem. Then when they do get security access later, then it's simply they are go to the pages. They see no difference. There's nothing different. They will not get blocked again. So this has worked out very well for us. It allows us to implement it. And we did originally have a system that the user would have to go to another system to review the terms of use and accept. And our security group was having to monitor those to ensure that people were actually had accepted before they could grant security. That was a lot of extra overhead, and it wasn't efficient at all. And people were very frustrated, both the manual work that security had to do, I can only imagine their frustration, but also for our end users that they had submitted security requests and it took longer because of those extra checks. This is automatic. If they haven't done it, it's going to remind them and put it right in front of them in the login. They go through it, they accept it, and they can complete access to the system then. They refresh and they're there. So that's worked out well. Our solution is a bolt-on. We have a custom page, an application package, and using Appsian ASP. Next is securing fields or functionality. And a lot of these, as I'd said, and I failed to point out some of these. The first section that I've already covered, whether it's location-based, whether it's accepting agreements, potentially even if we change our agreement, we can push these things out quickly. I don't know about, in the case of location-based, I don't know about you guys, but until 2020, at no time did we think some of the transactions that were being processed in people's homes were going to be allowed. Why would you ever let someone run a payroll from home? Well, when they can't physically get in the office, they absolutely will be. Us requiring the use of and monitoring the IPs, making sure they're doing that through our VPN, those are invaluable. Making sure we've got Duo in place so it doesn't matter where someone may be, they can do their Duo. They've got their device with them and they can authenticate and come in, and then you know it's them. Those are things we just would have never expected needing it in this way. So two-factor Duo. I've talked about Duo already. This is another way that we're doing Duo. And this is blocking on fields or functionality. We currently block in HCM or CS. So we have it in two systems. The first example I'm going to talk about is blocking links. And in the case of links, They have the best example is, in this case, if you go to a page and you've got one sensitive field, or one sensitive field on your page that you need to block, you can put Duo and we block that one field. In order to open that field, it may be displaying data, or in one case, in the case of the W-2, and if you work for a company that has PeopleSoft implemented as HR, you probably are coming through, hopefully you're coming through remote and being able to view your W-2 online. We block the view form. Nothing else on that page is problematic. The only issue on that page is the one field, which is view form. We've put Duo on that field. So when you come to the page, that field is blocked, and you click a button and you have to do Duo for it to open and give you the actual button to click. This is no customization. We're not doing bolt-ons in these. This isn't a custom product. Another example, everything doesn't fit that same. Direct deposit is an example. You go to the HR direct deposit, you have an entire page of bank account numbers. You can see all of my accounts right there on the page. We really did not want to do the same design and have 4 or 5 fields with Duo on it. That's not efficient, and that's not a good experience for the user. So what we do there is we have a block accessing the page. We actually take them to if they click to go to the direct deposit, or a few other fields, pay my bill is one, and there's others. If you click to direct deposit, it takes you to the page that has explanation, has notes and information that payroll had provided us to give, and it allows you to be able to see a Duo button right there on the page. You click it. Once you're Duo authenticated, it takes you to direct deposit page. If you try to do it again, it checks, and depending on how long it's been, if it's been in the time frame that we're allowing that to be accessed, then it'll allow you to get back in. If not, it's going to block and require you to do Duo a second time. This solution was done with Duo and Apcian's ASP. Another is field level block, blocking sensitive data. And in the case of, one example is we have a custom page in finance. Access may be required to enter it, but enter the data. It's a transaction page. They go in and they fill in certain fields, and there's one field on the page that's sensitive. They need to be able to enter the data, but they do not need to get to it after they've entered it. So what we do is we block, we give, and yes, the example I'm giving here is Social Security. There's the field that they will do the data entry into. And when you click on, when you go to the field, you see over to the right a message. We didn't customize the page. Again, this is configuration in the tool. It's not a bolt-on, it's not customizing. If I ran a app designer compare, I would not see any code on that page. What other options? Or as it states there, you click after you enter it and it blocks. We highlight it, shows a little bit different shade to emphasize it, and it shows it masked like a social. 2 other examples, because we've looked at these as well, and we've used some of these in other examples. The first one, I've got my name, first name. There's my social. It says over to the right. It'll be locked after entry. After I tab out, it blocks it. I can put whatever message I want. I can change that. I can change the masking. As you see here, I put sensitive data removed. I didn't put the asterisk for the social. I say sensitive data removed. Those are options that I would have. And again, it's all configuration. So the solution is Appsian ASP.
So click to view, sensitive fields, log when viewed. The utilized where users have access and occasional need to view data. An example of that is I may have in my job a need to view person data and add up person data. And on that page, there may be, of course, some very sensitive data like social security number, but there may be other data like address that is not a big deal, no concern with someone seeing. So what we've done is we've implemented and management wanted to know, be able to report to say, I mean, if Sharron Bouquin logged in dozens of times a day to view biodemo data, but maybe only once or twice a week, I need to see social. This allows me to go to the page. We're going to mask the field, and this field is masked, but it displays an underline, which is different than the masking you'd seen previously that we'd done. That indicates a link, and the users know to click that link. And once it's clicked, not only is the field exposed, it's actually rendered now to the user. So if social and I clicked on it, I can now see the social just like I would normally before this was in place. And it also logs. We log that the value was viewed. The solution to implement this was Appsian's ASP. Other security that we have based on while someone's logged in as an example. Let me give, and I'm going to read a description of what, I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Token Chpoken, but I'm going to read a brief description of it. The Token Chpoken attack, which affects systems that use single sign-on, SSO, is possible because an authentication cookie, PS token, used by PeopleSoft applications can be forged. The PS token cookie is generated when a user first signs into PeopleSoft application. When users log into a different server, the browser sends this cookie for authentication so that the user doesn't have to enter his or her credentials again. So, in summary, who's affected by this? Only customers that use single sign-on. Well, that's us. Probably you as well. PeopleSoft systems that are accessible via the internet. Yep, that's us too. That's probably 90% of the customers. And so what happens is it replaces the PS token value by another person's token value, and that could switch the second login user to the first person automatically. So I could be logged in. If someone can get my token, which there's different ways that they can get that information, they can use my token and be me. That's exactly what that's describing. That's scary. It was scary at the time we heard it. It continues to be, I hear Token Chpoken and I have to smile just because of the name, but it was a nightmare to hear about it. And this is an article. You don't really need the link. You could almost do a search on Token Chpoken, Chpoken. This article came out June 29th of 2015. And shortly thereafter, now I don't read Security Week regularly. I do on occasion, but not regularly. But shortly after this, in the July 2015 monthly report for Homeland Security, they actually had that as one of their top vulnerabilities for that month that they were reporting on. That's scary. And I can guarantee you that until July of 2015, I had never read Homeland Security monthly report. Did not even know it existed. How did we find out about this? Fortunately, Appian, although at the time it was Gray Heller, one of our contacts called us and asked, wanted to make sure what we were doing to help with this. Have we already taken action? I knew nothing. I started contacting others in the organization, and I was assured that things that we have in place, we're good. The only way to really assure that is to test. I encourage you to test, go back to your organization and try these things. And if you don't know how, reach out to Appian. At one time, I know they were doing kind of free assessments or free feedback. Reach out, get help if you need to, and seek out vendors to see if they can help you to ensure you're not vulnerable. We were, and we resolved it in a couple of weeks. And like I say, this was one of the most scariest things. My group, I have two small teams, and they're all rock stars. They're fantastic. We had never done anything like this. We had never attempted to or needed to. And this was something that was an eye-opener to us. But with a matter of just a couple of weeks, and most of that was testing, we had a solution in place and have maintained that. So 2015, July of 2015 is definitely there are a lot of articles on this topic from then. We maintain this, we continue with this solution that we have, and we're very appreciative. Like I say, my group never knew anything about it, and the ones that did thought that the things were put in place to resolve it. You just never know until you test it and try it. The solution was Appian ASP. Analysis via custom logs. The types of research using logs, PeopleSoft user activity. And Scott, if you could give me a occasional kind of countdown so that I know how, because I'm going to have to make up for lost time here.
Yeah, you have about 5 minutes.
Okay. Yep, sorry. So analysis via custom logs. I don't know why that keeps doing that. PeopleSoft user activity. We log and we report on it. And what activity do? We look at who, what, when, and where. Who was logged in? Who was performing the transaction? Took that action on the system? What were they doing? What were they doing before that? What were they doing after? What data were they looking at? And you might say, well, I can tell exactly what people are doing. Can you tell that I searched on your PID? I'm sorry, not PID, that's our terminology. Can you tell I searched on your IMPL ID? We can tell that because of our logging. When they did it, what time, and in what sequence of transactions, and where were they located? Were they on campus wired? Were they wireless? Were they on VPN? Or if it's self-service, were they somewhere else in the world? We can tell all of that. Who's asked for some of these? And these are just a few examples. Legal office, our auditors, information security office, or central office has all had requests to us for researching. And we use ASP and Splunk. Cross-site scripting. I'm going to kind of go through a little quickly on some of these, but basically we have the initial is when a user is logged in, we're looking at the URL. and if someone adds characters into that URL that could cause a cross-site scripting, we are blocking if they're students, administrative users. We log, get an alert. It actually comes as a page to us, and we analyze it to see, is it something that is an attempt? In most cases, it's been accidental, or it's been something a student or someone's trying to be funny. But we do watch it because it is a possibility. We use AppScience ASP and Splunk. And this is, like I say, this is one of the alerts that we actually get paged 24/7 to look at. The one that we need the most, much more in depth than a logged in authenticated user, is looking at the deeper levels, not just what someone put in a URL, but what is more embedded in the system logs at different levels. We watch for those. Those are activity that we do see, we do get paged on, and we do act on. And we do that 24/7. Some of these things I'll be glad to share more information one-on-one, but I'm not going to do it in a recording and not a presentation, not with hundreds of people, assuming there's still people out there after my little glitch here. Next, monitoring and analysis of data. PeopleSoft related logs, all layers of infrastructure end to end. Whether we have done any blocks, our field blocks, click to view, Duo, whether if you had an issue authenticating with Shibboleth, if you multiple times did Duo, we can tell all of that. And we can do that in a lot of cases through our new or custom logs, as well as different fields. We've expanded what fields we actually add and capture in our logs. We capture our device types. We can tell how often people use an iPad versus a laptop. We can tell how many times they are accessing via their phones. And in the case of the user agent, if iOS, we can tell what version they're on. Those have been very valuable, especially as vulnerabilities come out or issues arise, because there have been times that changes are made in different levels that of our, not necessarily PeopleSoft related, but other infrastructure that we need to make sure that they're on a more current version. So we can actually notify folks and let them know to upgrade. How do we do this so quickly? Our admins have configured so that we create the logs and they automatically go in one location, and then they get pushed to Splunk for us to access almost immediately after we've done it. So if I add a field, I can log into Splunk right after, and there's the data that's starting to show up. And all of that's being done through AppScience ASP and Splunk. Other tools or references. I've got a few links here. The browser developer tools I emphasize. If you don't use them, use them. If you've got developers that work for you, get them to learn them. Those are invaluable to do research. And we do use various cookie plugins. Edit This Cookie is one of them. Recommendation. Don't forget your internal resources. We've done a lot of things and partnered with a lot of folks on campus and a lot of different groups. Probably the most important that I would stress, if you're in ITS, if you're in the IT side, PeopleSoft development side, get to know your internal information security office and partner with them. They've got so much information. They're willing to help and willing to educate and guide you and give you ideas of things you need to be looking for. If you've got a web application that has all of this data, they will be the first. They will be very good at giving recommendations. Just ask them. I've done presentations with our ISO at different other events, large events, and there's pieces that they do and pieces that we do, and we partner together. So that's very valuable. And the most important thanks goes my awesome team, Hong Lin and Xiaoping Wu. If any of you are on and you know them, reach out to them and tell them you heard they were absolutely awesome. They're rock stars. I can't emphasize that enough. Everything I've shown you, I do have a small team. How do I accomplish this so much is because they are so good, so willing to learn, and we've got excellent partners. We learn, we use the tools, and we try to push ourselves to learn them even more. There's my email, Sharron_Bouquin@unc.edu. The quickest and easiest, remember Sharron with 2 R's. You probably don't know one. Sharron@unc.edu will come to me as well. So apologies for the power glitch, and I think I'm done. Scott, do we have any time for questions, or are we're overtime, aren't we?
I'm afraid we probably don't have time for questions, but thank you for including your email. I would certainly encourage anybody to reach out directly to Sharron if you have any questions. So thank you so much, Sharron, for your presentation today. I would like to encourage you to reach out if you do have any questions. Ensuring that the community is connected is always our goal. So any questions, I'm sure Sharron would be happy to answer for you. She alluded in a really nice segue to a logging and analytics product that Appsian was fortunately enough to help UNC with. The very next presentation that we'll be doing here in 15 minutes is going to take a deeper dive into that. So it's great timing. So if all of the things around data access and usage were of interest to you and you thought, hey, that sounds like a lot of visibility, I sure would like to learn more about that, you are in luck. 12 minutes and we'll be getting into that. So I would encourage you to certainly go back to the registration page and you can sign up for that session right now. So lastly, I would like to mention that future PeopleSoft Innovation Summits are currently being planned. We will be sending a survey out on Friday and would love to get any of your feedback. It's greatly appreciated. And we'd certainly encourage you to follow Appsian on LinkedIn and Twitter, as that will be the first place where you'll get to learn about future events. And of course, you can find us at www.appsian.com. So the next session, reducing PeopleSoft audit time from months to minutes, is up next. We'll be taking a deeper dive into visibility and how it can enhance your audit and response to any incidents. Will be a great session. We'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.